welcome to another Capitol Ideas. I'm Sandy Behan, and our guest this week is Senator Cal Hobson from Senate District 16. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
I see you got your back to school button on.
Sure enough.
Okay, you're going back to school with us as soon as this is over.
That's what I've been told.
Okay.
I can hardly wait.
Yeah, I'll bet. We'll talk a little bit more about it in just a moment. But we were visiting before the camera started, and you were talking about the difficult week you've had. I thought you might share with us a little bit exactly what's going on at the Capitol right now. This is the middle of February.
Right. Boy, everything's going on. You've got the governor's State of the State a week ago, Monday. You have 2,000 bills filed with all kinds of ideas, good and bad. The committee work is very intense right now. We also have the administrative requirement of moving bills through without numbers in them just to meet the new deadlines. 75 bills, for example, were voted on the floor on Wednesday. So there's an enormous amount of activity. Plus, early in the session, many special interest groups ranging from homeschoolers through perhaps the Cattlemen's Association have been at the Capitol with their wants and needs. So it's almost a battle to get from your office through the rotunda, you've been there, into the chambers on time, because people literally will grab you and say only 30 seconds. But if that happens every 30 seconds, you never get where you're supposed to go.
We were talking about, you said something about like 2,000 bills had been filed that you needed to get through. Can you possibly do justice to those bills with that kind of numbers?
No, and the good news is, of course, only a couple 300 will make it to the governor's desk for signature. The public oftentimes, many times, will say, why do you have all those bills? We've got more laws than we need now. Well, there's some truth in that, but people should realize that I don't generally think up those ideas, nor do other legislators. Those are ideas that emanate from the public, from the people, from special interest groups, on an array of thoughts. And so we file them, hear them, but the truth is 10% perhaps become law.
Okay. I know that when we did our legislative social and at some other times a little bit earlier, you mentioned that you thought that education, obviously, and corrections would be, and highways would be some of the bigger issues that would come before the legislature
Right.
this year. Are there any new ones or different ones that have surprised you in addition to those?
Well, the early death of, excuse me, the right-to-work legislation ends that controversial issue. The ongoing dialogue of the workers' compensation question, there are now probably 3 to 5 bills filed doing various things on the subject of workers' compensation, ranging from the so-called Mary Fallon Commission plan through and including one authored by a worker compensation lawyer. So you've got a lot to choose from. Those are the big issues, plus the 3 you mentioned. There has not been what I would call any big surprises, but there are quiet issues that in many ways are just as important that are not getting much attention. I'd like to mention one. We've all been through phone deregulation, airline deregulation, trucking deregulation, cable TV deregulation. The new one, and it's bigger than all those others combined, is the electrical industry deregulation. Now, that's a pretty boring topic until one gets their electricity bill. The bottom line is the Congress has dictated that there will be deregulation on that topic. States are moving in various degrees to deregulate, and the final composition may be that you, in your home, would have 3 or 4 or 5 electrical retailers to choose from in the next 2 or 3 years to buy your electricity.
Why would I want that kind of choice?
Well, if you're on the side of PSO or OG&E, who have regulated monopolies right now, that's what they say. They say, go very slow on this. Electrical rates in Oklahoma are in the bottom 10 in the country. So why would we want to rush into this? The reverse side comes from kind of newer entities, companies like Enron and others, who say, here's why. we'll get in there, we'll compete with OG&E, we'll underbid OG&E, because we may wheel power in here from hydro plants, and making electricity from hydro plants can be cheaper than making electricity from coal or nuclear or natural gas. So where the truth lies, I don't know, because we do have cheap rates in Oklahoma, but competition, I am told, is the centerpiece of our way of economic life in America. We'll see.
From your experience, though, as a legislator, has deregulation worked for the telephone industry and the trucking industry and the airline industry?
Starting tonight at 12:01, when the American airline pilots strike, if they do, who knows? Generally, I think in the airline industry, it's been a plus. Think back years ago when we were younger. You didn't hear of things of friends fly free and those kind of gimmicks to attract. I can remember when an airline ticket to Washington, D.C. round trip could be $1,000. I went up there a month ago, it was $201. So I think in some examples it's been a winner. Now I have cable TV, you have cable TV, I'm sure most of our observers obviously have cable TV. My bill is more than it was when cable was deregulated. So I think you have to pick your industry.
Okay. We're going to bring the kids out here in just a minute, but we're also going to, at the end of this, run some clips of you at school being a student. So I thought we might talk a little bit about the OEA Back to School premise. And
okay.
We had Doug on last week, Doug Miller, and he had been to Purcell, and I know Wallace Collins has been to Noble, and Laura Boyd has been to an elementary school here in Norman. What do you understand this experience to be?
I understand it to be exhaustive. According to Doug and Laura and Wallace, who I all spoke with after they had their stint in the trenches, Doug showed up at, and Wallace both, down at the Noble teachers meeting last Friday. And they literally were exhausted after a day of challenges with the kids. I look forward to it because I want to see how much the classrooms have changed since I taught briefly 22 years ago when I came back from the service. I want to see how the dynamics of the children of this generation perhaps have changed since that generation ago, and I want to see your technology. I know that's got to be dramatically different. I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
Well, you're going to be a student. You're not, the other ones I think got to be teachers, and we're going to let you be a student. So you're going to learn Romeo and Juliet with everybody else, and you're going to go online with the Electronic Model Congress just the way we do. So.
Oh no, I have to use a computer?
You betcha.
Oh no.
We all had to do it at some point or other.
It's a good thing I finally got my computer at the Capitol then,
That's
so
right.
I know a little bit about it.
So you have a little bit.
Right.
Okay, and we'll be back in just a moment with two students from Central Mid High School.
Miss Kramer, do you want us to turn these in?
Yeah, but not right now. Later. Okay? Got it? Now, you're going to be disappointed if you think we're going to get to see a bed scene, because remember, in Shakespeare's times, these parts were played by men. So you're not going to see any mushy stuff or any sexy stuff.
It was the nightingale.
It was the lark, the herald of the moon, no nightingale. Look, love, what envious streaks do lace the severing clouds in yonder east. Night's candles are burnt out, and the jocund day stands tiptoe on the misty mountain tops. I must be gone and live, or stay and die.
Young light is not daylight. I know it, It is some meteor that the sun exhaled to be to thee this night a torch-bearer and to light thee on my way to Mantua. Therefore stay yet. Thou means not to be gone.
Let me be tamed, let me be put to death. I am content, so thou wilt have it so. I'll say yon grey is not the morning's eye. 'Tis not the pale reflex of Cynthia's brow, nor that is not the lark whose notes do beat the vaulty heaven so high above our heads. I have more care to stay than will to go. Come, death, and welcome to...
To download all that stuff to your computer, so that's why it does it. And see, lots of these sites are good. They give good opinions, but they just don't, I mean, they don't say why they feel a certain way. See, that's what we're kind of looking for, is like what basis
tell you something. 6 months ago, I'd have been terrified to come in here into this room and touch this, because unlike you all who've grown up with computers, I didn't even get my own computer at Capitol until 6 months ago. And so now I've got it at home, and it's light, and I can do lots of things with it. But, and I'm not afraid to mess with this now. But I didn't know, I didn't understand back and forward and home or reload and all that nonsense. It's not complex once you sit down with it.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Okay, we're going to go back. Okay, you tell me. What else should we be doing?
Basically.
So how to research a different topic?
Yeah, and see, the good thing about this one is that it has your query string up here, so if you want to change it, for some reason you don't like what you're getting, you can go back and erase it.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah. So, let's look at the second drill here, which is...
A mandatory DNA sample on file.
Okay, so you're going to plug in...
Maybe we can let's say something about either DNA or mandatory DNA or something.
See what I can get.
Let's type DNA. You can just usually hit enter and it'll automatically start going. Whoa, 400,000.
Where do you know that?
That says documents 1 through 10 about 400,000 matching. Best matches first. Yeah, but this thing's getting pretty big. This is only one. They have like about 20 or 30 different sites on there. You can search for stuff.
Okay, what location in the net are you in that's giving you all these options?
This is just one website, and all it is it just when people like start up a new site, what they'll do is they'll call this place. They send them an email saying, hey, I've got a new site, and it's going to be this, it has, and then they might like say, well, it's about this, and you maybe want to put it in this category, and they'll say, okay, so they add it to their database.
Do you guys have any concept of how advanced this is compared to just 5 years ago?
Unfortunately, I can't really say so. I don't know. I didn't get into computers until about 3 years ago, so I guess it seems like it'd be a lot more advanced. It's just hard for me to kind of put a timeline to this. So
I'm just starting to learn about the internet now. Just these past couple of weeks, what's that on there?
Well, the reason I mentioned that it's not ancient history. Literally 3 years ago or less, if you had a newspaper, a current daily newspaper at your school, that's a big deal. The Norman Transcript asked a number of us to provide newspapers to the school. You have the world in real time at your fingertips, and this is so new that you're literally on the cutting edge as compared to anybody else in the world. You're as current with information as people sitting on Wall Street. You can go to this and get stock quotes that are current.
Yeah.
We're back with two students from Central Mid High School, and our student guests this week are Amanda Biddle and Kelly Brennan. And Kelly, I think you get the honor of asking Senator Hobson the first question.
Okay. Senator Hobson, what made you want to start politics? And exactly how long have you been in it?
Oh man, that's a mean question. A long time. I actually got out of the service, the Air Force, in 1974. Because since I was a little boy, I've been interested in politics. The very first TV show I can remember watching, believe it or not, at age 7, I guess, was the Republican National Convention, and I made all my brothers and sisters mad because
What year? No, this is a serious question.
All right, 1952.
Same one.
Correct?
Congratulations.
All right, we were tuned in together there, soulmates. So it's been a lifetime of interest, and then I ran for the House of Representatives first in 1978, and then ran for the State Senate in 1990. So I guess this is my 19th session in the state legislature.
What kinds of personality traits would make a good politician?
Boy, those are good questions. believe it or not, it's important to be a good listener and not necessarily a fast talker. The issues are so complex anymore, and both sides have good points usually, that it's important to listen. Patience is another virtue, I think, if you're going to be in the political world, because answers to difficult questions don't come easy any longer, so it takes time. And third, and this probably doesn't sound very good, but you have to be willing to compromise. Those that go to the legislature or to the Congress that take the view that it's my way or no way really never get anything done. The extremes on the left or the right won't accomplish anything. The answers are somewhere in the middle, and so I'd say at least those three traits would be helpful to you. You need to be an interested reader. You've got to want knowledge, and it helps to have a fairly high level of energy, because like your teachers, the days can get pretty long and run into the evenings. Those 5 traits would be helpful.
Okay, do you feel you've made a positive impact on Oklahoma?
There are days that I'm convinced that I haven't made any difference at all, because some of the issues keep coming back. Our level and quality of education, while we have islands of excellence like here in Norman, with great school, great teachers, there are a number of schools that still lag woefully behind in the curriculum and the opportunities for those children. And so in that respect, even though House Bill 1017, the Education Reform Act, is law, and I'd like to think I had a minor role to play in that, we haven't come as far as I wish we would have. There are some areas like Oklahoma's current living will legislation. I was the author of that, and for many people who are confronting desperate medical challenges, I think that law has been beneficial, and so I can pick out things like that I look back on and say, well, maybe I made a little difference in that area that's been beneficial. You just have to try every day. It's like teaching 40 or 50 children every hour. She has her successes and she has her challenges. That's kind of the way my life has gone too.
What kind of high school courses did you take to prepare for your career?
What kind of high school courses?
Yeah.
English is critical. And in my high school days, we didn't have access to what I understand we're going to have access to in a little bit, a computer lab. But the more technically adept you are, the more you'll be equipped to either become a legislator if you're crazy enough to aspire to that, but more importantly, be successful in the business world, or whatever world you choose. You will have to understand computers, the internet, being online. Those kinds of things will be important. Math skills obviously are important. I can't think of much you take that won't be of benefit either in a political world or some other business venture that you might choose. But English is always at the top of the list. The ability to communicate. I'll take 30 seconds on this, I promise. President Boren convened a number of very important leaders of the business world when he became president of OU. People like Robert Crandall, chairman of the board of American Airlines, who's in the midst of this fight with the pilots. All of them said, give me young people who are broadly based in their education, who are generalists, not narrow, rifle shot kind of people who are adept in only one field. We want people that can communicate, think, create, and evaluate. That's where you'll be successful if you have those skills.
Okay, according to my research, a $200 to $220 million extra dollars bill was proposed for higher education in December of '96. Did this proposal actually go through, and if so, where did the money go?
Your research is pretty close to right. In the December '96 timeframe, the Senate proposed a number of spending proposals for education, kindergarten through graduate school. Now we're going to have growth revenue of something above $220 million. Something known as the Equalization Board is recertifying soon, and we may have slightly more than that. We in the Senate want to spend most of the money, once again, on education because we view that as an investment. The competitors for that money, though, the number one big gorilla for money in Oklahoma and unfortunately nationally now is corrections, locking up more human beings longer. California used to be a model for investment in higher education. Unfortunately, in California now, they spend more money on corrections than they do higher education. I hope Oklahoma doesn't aspire to that model, and that's why we want to embargo the bulk of the money for education, and then what's left will go to roads, corrections, and other programs. But your numbers are very, very close to what we should receive in growth money. Amanda.
Would you encourage young people today to go into politics?
Absolutely. And it's a major concern of mine because even though young people received the right to vote a number of years ago, age 18 through 21, it's that age group that doesn't vote. And I can understand that. I didn't think much about voting when I was in that age bracket, but you really need to make it a life pattern because the percent of voters continues to drop. I think it was lower again in 96. And yet the decisions that government makes, whether you like them or not, affect every facet of your life, from whether you wear a seatbelt, speed limits, the number of students in your class. The list is endless. And so I wish more young people would aspire to the political world. But the other side of the coin is you often see only the harshest 5 seconds of what's said in Congress or what's said in the legislature on TV at night. And you look at that and you probably say, those goofballs, do I want to be around people that talk and behave and yell and act like that? So you need to get in a little deeper than just the brief clip on TV, and that's why you probably are involved in Model Congress, both of the students.
Hopefully.
And Kelly was Bill Clinton in your presidential campaign of the past fall. So you'll be involved. I just worry about some of the other students.
Okay, my last question is, many people think prisoners have too many benefits. What's your view on this?
Most people think prisoners have too many benefits, and perhaps you can point out excesses and make that case. I end up spending an awful lot of time at our prisons because my subcommittee writes the budget for corrections and all the law enforcement agencies. If you go to a prison and spend any time there, if you're a fairly normal person, you'll leave saying, I couldn't live like that. I couldn't stand the regimentation, the orders, the discipline. Where benefits are excessive, we should try to reduce them, but sometimes we do, I think, counterproductive things in the name of almost vengeance. And I'd like to give you one example if time allows. For a number of years, Pell Grants were provided to inmates as well as to students who had not gotten in trouble. Well, I think it's smart to have inmates come out of prison better educated, off drugs and alcohol, with a skill, the ability to read and write, than when they came in. That makes sense to me. Well, the Congress repealed the opportunity for Pell Grants to inmates a couple of years ago. And so immediately overnight we had between 700 and 1,000 inmates who were working towards a college degree, suddenly not working towards a college degree. I think that's counterproductive. Probably makes a real good clip saying we're not going to give Pell Grants to inmates, but it doesn't serve our society in general when we don't have inmates with a proper education. If they'll get an education in the first place, they'll never become inmates by and large.
Is this a constant issue, debate in the legislature, the punitive versus the rehabilitative?
Wednesday of this week, as a matter of fact, we, in our subcommittee that deals with these issues, had 30-something bills. Almost all of them were punitive in nature, longer sentences, more categories of people going to prison, the desire to remove opportunities to be normal or become normal through the prison process. So yes, it is an ongoing process, and I think that, quite frankly, we've become a harder, harsher society because we are terrified of especially young violent offenders because their acts can be so irrational and so cruel. I'm not sure. I know I don't have the answer to all this process, but the answer clearly to me is not leading the world in the rate of incarceration for many categories of nonviolent offenders. I think there are smarter ways to deal with them than prison.
And I think we got time for one more. You got another one?
Okay. Do you feel that the pressure put on teenage girls to have boyfriends causes women to be dependent on men in later life?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was a teenage boy, there apparently was no pressure on the young girls to obtain a boyfriend because I was a complete failure at that. I don't know about the current environment. It's an interesting question. My view is that young women have come far in the area of equal opportunities, and they shouldn't feel those pressures to have a boyfriend, to be viewed as successful, but women still lag far behind in true economic opportunity. You'll still go to work for about 75 cents on the dollar as compared to the young men in your class when you're employed. That's progress from where it was 15 years ago, but it's not equal, it's not fair, and therefore, in my view, it's not right.
Okay, it's time to go back to school.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. It's time to go back and read that Shakespeare. I want to thank you for being with us this morning, and we'll be back next week with another Capital Ideas.